Well, Cats fans, it is absolutely official. Colin Klein is the new head coach at Kansas State. Kansas State head coach Colin Klein. It's got a nice ring to it, if you will. I'm absolutely fired up. I've been celebrating a little bit with my friends, with my family. I've been kind of going through it. It is a great day to be a Wildcat. And to start things off, I'm going to just tell you this now. Why don't you raise a glass? Why don't you have a beer? Why don't you have a whiskey? If you don't drink, why don't you have a water? Here's one for the Cats, man. We've deserved something good this year. And give me a split second. We've deserved something good because it has been painful to watch this football team play, and we've been one step away for a long time. We've been one moment away. We've been one aspect away. Tonight, we don't have to worry about that a single bit. This is a massive win for Kansas State, and I'm fired up to talk about new head coach Collin Klein. Now, because I always get too fired up and I forget to mention this, let me tell you this. Before we get into the video, be sure and hit the subscribe button if you haven't been on this channel before. If you have and you're already subscribed, hit the like button, hit the comment button. I am so fired up to see all of your comments on these past couple videos, talking about the Klein era, talking about what's next for Kansas State. It brings me so much excitement and so much joy to see all of you interacting with the content. But I'm just excited, man. I'm so stoked about Kansas State football. And that truly isn't something I don't think I've said on the channel since maybe August, since prior to the season started. This is a great day to be a Wildcat, and I'm fired up to talk about every takeaway I have. Let me start by reading some statements from both Colin Klein and Gene Taylor. The first one I'll toss out there is the actual words from Colin Klein himself, something that fired me up, and I'm so excited to read that. Here's what Colin Klein had to say about joining the Wildcats. My family and I could not be more grateful for the opportunity to come home. Thank you to President Linkon and Gene Taylor for believing in us to lead the Cats into a new era. This position of head coach at Kansas State has a long legacy of service, hard work, determination, and competitive greatness that I am honored to carry forward. This is family business, and we cannot wait to get to work. Family business, baby. The man knows exactly his audience. He knows what he's about. This is what Gene Taylor had to say. He had a couple things to say, actually, so I'll read the second thing in a second. But for now, this is what Gene said in the initial response to the post. Gene said, "We are excited to welcome one of our all-time greats back home to Manhattan. Colin is a tremendous leader who cares deeply about his players. The grit, toughness, and aggression he displayed as a player still fuels him today as a coach, and he is determined to carry on the tremendous success this program has achieved. As we know, college football has changed, and I am confident that Colin is ready to embrace this new model while maintaining the culture that we know as K-State football. Welcome home, Colin, Shaylin, Barrick, Rhett, Trek, and Breyer." Fire. The best quote of the day, though, even though we've been kind of hard on Gene Taylor lately, myself included, obviously myself included when I say we, Gene Taylor tweeted because he got a lot of flack about the whole, I guess I don't have his number anymore. Maybe I should try to find that. Gene Taylor tweeted out and said, "I finally found his number." That's awesome. Shout out to Gene Taylor. I finally found his number in a tweet. That thing blew up, obviously, for honest reasons. But let's be honest, Gene was bullshitting something fierce at the Chris Klieman farewell press conference saying, "Hey, I don't have his number. I don't even know how to contact that guy anymore. It's crazy. I should have, maybe I should find that number." He was bullshitting something crazy. Everybody knew that. You knew that. I knew that. We all knew that. But if you didn't, here's your clue. That said, Gene got it done, and this is a monumental moment for Kansas State football. Like I said, how many times have we been just one move away? How many times have we been just one break away? One little thing where it's like, oh, if this small thing just happened, or if this small thing didn't happen, we'd be right where we want to be. How many times can you count? And I don't even want to know how many things came to your mind because there's 150 that came to my mind. But in every major sport, in every major walk of life, Kansas State fans have suffered. And yeah, there's been good moments. Yes, there's been awesome times. The 2022 season for the Big 12 title game under Chris Klieman, the Elite Eight run under Jerome Tang with Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, and the fellas, that was an incredible year. But how many times have you been kicked in the nuts? And I mean that truthfully. This is a time where we can sit back and say, this thing worked out perfectly for all parties involved. The man you have to thank for it is Chris Klieman. I will never forget that man. The dude is deserving to be in the Ring of Honor, and I'll go to bat for that till the day I die. That said, that's not the point of this video for now. But let me say this, talking about Chris Klieman and Colin Klein, this feels poetic. If you didn't see the tweet, Drew Galloway was the first one that brought it to my attention, so I want to give him a shout out for this. If you didn't think back to Chris Kleiman's first game, who was it against? 2018. Chris Kleiman's first game was against Nichols. At the time, Nichols State, now just Nichols. Colin Klein's first game at Kansas State, believe it or not, Nichols. It doesn't get more poetic than that. Time is a circle, man. You can't make this stuff up. It's beautiful. Now, I've got a lot of different thoughts about this. One thing that I do want to mention, I absolutely want to mention, and I'm sure I'll hit this 150 times over the next week, I don't know what's going to happen with NIL. Nobody really does. I know the decision to bring it in-house was something that was made this past week. Wildcat NIL closed up its doors, and the Wildcats basically said, you know what? In the new era of college football, we have to decide what we're doing next. I don't know where it goes from here. I won't BS you that and say, oh, I know everything. I have an inside source of XYZ thing. I know nothing. Now, that said, doesn't it feel like Colin Klein will have an absolute war chest relative to what Kansas State can provide? If there's a maximum of what Kansas State donors, big major donors, Kansas State fans, of what we can provide as a university support system to Colin Klein, I feel like it is going to be the most money a college football coach has had at Kansas State. Colin Klein is the prodigal son. I've talked about it 150 times. It worked out. Every donor that's on the sideline saying, you know what, like, not to say they don't support Chris Klieman or they didn't support Chris Klieman, but it's like the guy you want to replace him, the guy that you want to come next of like, well, I don't know if I'm motivated enough to move from the sidelines to a contributor. It's Colin Klein. Give him the money he deserves. He's fresh off leading a top 3, top 5 offense in the country at Texas A&M. He's going to go through the playoff. We'll see how the whole process works. I hope they win the national title. That'd be great to have under his resume. But the point is, I think we're going to have some money to toss around. Now, I mentioned the previous video when Chris Klieman stepped down, or prior to that, even maybe the video before that, now that I think about it, where I was like, I don't know how much money is going to be there for the rebuild. I think there's going to be some money there for the rebuild. I don't have any inside sources. I don't have any donors on my payroll. I have no money myself, so I'm not really the most contributing person here. But I do think Colin Klein's going to have a war chest. Now, if you follow me on X, Twitter, it's Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I asked a question, and I said, hey, Colin Klein's the next head coach at Kansas State, the 36th head coach at Kansas State. I think he's also 36 years old, unless I'm just blending numbers. Could be 36 and 36. If you follow me on Twitter, I asked, what are some questions you want to know? Because I could just give you the general, like, hey, I'm fired up. Hey, this guy's fired up. Everybody's fired up. Let's talk about this. You guys asked some really good questions, and I kind of wanted to jump into that. Some questions that were asked to me involved roster retention. That's what I'll talk about here now. You guys asked about staff changes, year one expectations. There's a ton of different things that I want to talk about, and I'm excited to do so. But let me start off with the good old-fashioned roster retention, because there's a lot of players on this roster that I'd love to keep in Manhattan, and I would think Colin Klein would want the same. There's some players that maybe we're on the fence about, but generally, Colin Klein has his guys he wants, and then he'll have to go from there. This is absolutely a massive hire for roster retention. I've said it for weeks. If you watched the channel a couple weeks ago, I basically said, if you want this thing to avoid being a complete rebuild, you hire Colin Klein. And I didn't know how serious the retirement rumors were. I didn't know how serious any of this stuff was going to be, but I was unsure that Chris Klieman would motivate guys to stick around. Now, Quay Moss already hit the portal. From what I had heard, he was kind of already out the door. But the guys that left, I don't think were a shock to anybody. Whether it was Chris Klieman, whether it was Colin Klein, I don't think anybody's surprised about that. Now, it sucks to lose Quay Moss. I won't lie about that. But this is the best chance at roster retention. Now, the people I have heard about, because these are going to be the big guys, I don't hear about everybody on the roster. From what I have heard from inside sources, and I won't go to bat for this too much, but I have heard Linkon is basically a done deal to come back. Could this change? Absolutely. If I'm wrong in 2 daes, I'm sorry, guys. This is the best of my ability. This is the best of what I know. I've heard that Linkon wants to come back. The guy was almost ready to commit to Kansas State when when Klein was here the first time around before Klein went to A&M, so that doesn't shock me at all. We talked about it in the last video. Avery Johnson, I've heard, is leaning towards coming back. He was one of the first players, if not the first people, to share the Colin Klein news on his Instagram story. I know social media is kind of one thing or another, but that does not mean nothing. It's not nothing that Avery Johnson shared that. A guy that grew up idolizing Kansas State, probably grew up idolizing Colin Klein. He plays a similar way. He's got that same bread and butter kind of movement that Colin Klein does have. It doesn't shock me one bit to see that guy all about the hire. Does that mean he'll be back? No, it doesn't, but it does feel good to see. Now, other guys that have shared that post on social media, it's currently 10:51 when I'm recording this. I haven't checked in about an hour. There could be 150 people more that have shared this, or there could be, all these guys could have deleted it by now. But the point is, the guys that I've seen that are notable returners that have shared it on their story, you got Blake Barnett. We'll see what happens there. I know Blake Barnett's a big Colin Klein guy. Joe Jackson, who I know a lot of people are fired up about. And, of course, Avery Johnson, Linkon. We talked about those two already. We'll see what happens with Jace Brown. I'm not entirely sure. I know he's a stud, and you want to keep him more than you want many, many, many guys on this roster. Keeping Avery Johnson is step 1A to getting Jace Brown back, because there's 1A and 1B. You got to figure it out with Jace. You got to figure it out with Avery. you want those dudes back. It's a package deal to an extent because Jace could still have an incredible offer to go play in Florida, Miami, whatever the case is, back in his home state. I understand if Jace goes to the portal, but in general, this is going to be an elite offensive plan. Haven't heard anything on Tibbs. Haven't heard anything on a couple of different guys. Tobio, we'll see what happens with the D-line guys. But let's talk some staff changes because that's always something that people want to hear about. We've heard a couple of things already confirmed. Van Malone is out, the defensive backs coach that's been in Manhattan for 7 years. Every year under Chris Klieman, he's done a solid job. Obviously developed guys like Jacob Parrish, developed guys like A.J. Parker, developed guys like Juju Brents at Kansas State, Julius Brents, before he changed the name, kind of. Echo Boydo as well. He developed a lot of good players. He's out. He's looking for a new job. In general, and I'll talk about some more retention pieces, I don't know that I see many candidates to retain in terms of Colin Klein building a staff. Chris Klieman's staff I thought was solid, and solid is almost doing a favor. If you looked at it on a scale of 1 to 10, I think the staff was about a 6 from start to finish. And I don't expect a first-year head coach fired up to be at his alma mater to be comfortable with the 6. Now, Chris Klieman in his last year of college football saying, you know what, I'm not going to worry too much about it. We'll figure this thing out. I think that's okay. But the guys that I think are eligible, I mean, everybody's eligible to come back, but the guys that I would consider taking back, in my opinion, Joe Klanderman, I think is someone you could make a case for. If you disagree, I won't blame you about that. If you agree, cool, props to you. I could see Klanderman coming back. Brian LePack, it has to be in a different role. It cannot be his O-line coach. The O-line sucked balls. I would not doubt that he's moving on from that. But Brian LePack, Joe Klanderman, a couple different guys here and there that could be back. We'll see what happens. I don't anticipate Matthew Middleton or any of the DB coaches or linebacker coaches. Buddy Wyatt's done a good job. Maybe he comes back. We'll see what happens. A lot of that is going to be dependent on how the relationship is with Colin Klein. New head coach Colin Klein. He's not just an offensive coordinator anymore. He's the one making the decisions. So it's all going to depend on that. But in general, I would probably only expect a handful of guys, 3 to 5 guys coming back max. So that's something there. The guys that I have heard rumored coming in, these are the big ones that everybody wants to hear about. Stanton Weber will be the head coach of special teams. Head coach, I don't know why I said it like that. Stanton Weber will be the special teams coach at Kansas State. I have heard nothing. I have not heard that confirmed. I haven't heard that from Klein. I haven't heard that from Stanton Weber. I haven't heard that from anybody. But it would genuinely be the most baffling storyline of all time to not see Stanton Weber back at Kansas State this offseason coaching these special teams. Because our special teams has been dog shit. Nate Katzer, I think it was Nate, right? Nate Katzer, Coach Katzer, was supposed to be good. He wasn't very good. We had good kickers. We didn't have a good coach. That's fine. Our long snappers were dog shit for a little while. We have a 5-star kid coming in, 5-star kicker coming in. Punters were okay. Special teams is a problem under Chris Klieman. That will not be the case under Colin Klein. It will not be the case at all. So Stanton Weber is coming back home. I will not hear any other arguments. I don't want to hear. I saw some comments about Sean Snyder. Piss off for that guy. No, I don't want Sean Snyder anywhere near this program. I've had enough of that buffoon trying to ruin this program. No shot is that guy coming back. If he is, maybe this will age horribly, but no. Keep the Snyder name. As beautiful as Bill Snyder was for Kansas State University, is incredible. Do not put Sean Snyder anywhere near this program. That is a dumb idea. That is an awful red flag on the coaching history for the first 2 days or day that it's been for Colin Klein. Do not hire anybody with the last name Snyder for now. That said, I do not think this is a guy that everybody wants to talk about. I don't see Jake Waters coming back to Manhattan. I think he's more of an Iowa State guy than he is Kansas State, which is tough, but I get it. And the caveat to all this is that Matt Campbell is really exploring the Penn State stuff. Maybe at the time you're watching this, because I'm recording it the night before, all that's wrapped up. Maybe he's staying at Iowa State. Maybe he's going to Penn State. I don't know the full extent of that. I wouldn't bank on Jake Waters being here at Kansas State. If he would, he'd be the offensive coordinator or he'd be the quarterback's coach. I don't know the full extent. But in general, I don't know that I'm going to bend over backwards to say Jake Waters is 100% going to be here the same way I would with the Stanton Weber. I have heard whispers of Colin Klein poaching a couple guys on A&M staff. I don't really want to speculate on that because their season's still happening. Kansas State's done. We'll see what happens. If guys want to come, they want to keep coaching, they want to coach somewhere else, they want a different opportunity, more money, more XYZ thing. If you can poach any coaches away from an SEC program that's in the college football playoff, that is some big-time ads right there. So that's one thing I wanted to address. I don't want to speculate about it, but in theory, I have heard about a couple guys potentially being poached from A&M staff, but I don't want to mention any names yet. One name to know, everybody said it. I'm not breaking news. Derek Young said it 100 different times on YouTube channel, on 3, Twitter, a couple different things. Zach Hanson at USC. He's currently I think their tight end coach and associate head coach for offense. He is a big one to come back to Kansas State. Former player, former coach here, got a ton of background on the offensive line. I wouldn't be shocked to see him come back as an offensive line coach, maybe as an offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens. Klein's going to call the plays, so that doesn't surprise me at all. That is one to keep an eye on. I also wouldn't rule out the possibility of a second USC coach coming back to Kansas State. I'll leave it at that. Don't want to go past that. For now, the next thing I want to talk about is year one expectations. There's going to be growing pains. There are. You don't date a new girl and everything's perfect. You don't get a new car and everything's perfect. There's going to be some things you don't like about it. There's going to be some questions you disagree with. There's going to be some problems that arise that will catch you off guard. But also, this is the future of Kansas State's program. It is. If there's issues in year one, sure. But looking at that schedule, and I get that things are going to change. Every single year there's a team that I don't anticipate being good is good. BYU is supposed to be dog shit. They were really good. They kicked our butts when we went on the road to Provo. I never want to play there ever again, actually. But Arizona State was supposed to be really, really bad. They weren't. They kicked our butts. There's a couple different teams every single year that beat you, and you're not anticipating that. The 2026 schedule, if you've looked at it, does not look good on paper. It doesn't. I think the games you have set up, I think you will absolutely have an opportunity at being one of those teams that competes for a Big 12 title, even though it's year one of a new coach. Kansas State will have that opportunity. My year one expectations, to temper them, because I know people are going to say, Joe, you shouldn't be excited with mediocrity or whatever. It's different when you're building towards something versus when you're coming to the tail end of something. I wouldn't be shocked to see Kansas State finish 9-3. That's kind of my way too early pick. I don't even know who's on the roster yet. Avery Johnson could be playing for Arizona State for all I know. The point of what I'm saying is I think the realistic prediction is going to be 8-3. My over-the-top predictions, 8-4. My over-the-top predictions, 9-3. I'll sit with that. That's way too early. We'll address this here once we see the roster in about a month. But for now, that's where I'm at on that one. Closing thoughts. It's been a damn good day. It's been a damn good day, my friends. The Cats balled out. This is a program-defining win for Kansas State, and one that you needed, one that I needed, one that the fans needed, the friends needed, the coaches needed, the players needed. If you didn't see all the love, this is for both parties. It's a two-parter here. Hear me out on this part. If you didn't see every bit of love Chris Klieman received from every single player that he impacted, you got to go check social media out about that. Part two, if you didn't see every bit of excitement and optimism that every single player tweeted out or posted on Instagram, posted on whatever social media they use for Colin Klein taking over the program, you got to go check social media. This is the most K-State move humanly possible. And for once, every single timeline worked out. Everything was beautiful. And I'm so excited to see what tomorrow looks like as a Wildcat. For now, guys, that's going to do it. If you have any questions, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, do the trifecta there if you haven't already. If you have, one of the three is great, two of the three is even better. But if not, if you've done all three, I love you and I appreciate you. And I'll finish this off the right way, my friends. Have a great day and go Cats, baby.